Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and welcome back to Everyday Consent. A couple weeks ago, I attended the second annual Sexual Health Expo in Los Angeles, California, and today I want to tell you a little bit about my experiences and thoughts. According to their website, the Sexual Health Expo, or SHE, is an upscale event that puts a stylish touch on sex ed, anchored by workshops hosted by top sexperts and exhibition halls featuring cutting-edge pleasure products. SHE empowers its diverse attendee base to immerse themselves in all the benefits of a healthy sex life. The event was centered around speakers, so there were two separate areas for the two concurrent speaker tracks. One section was focused on skills and techniques, with talks such as aging in sex, amazing anal, 10 steps to enhance male pleasure, and how to drive a vulva. The other track was centered around relationships and kink, with topics such as online dating made easy, negotiating alternative lifestyles, role play, the myth of sexual dysfunctions, and hooking up healthy. Aside from the two speaker tracks, there was also a large expo hall filled with lots of different booths filled with fun and exciting goodies. Dildos and butt plugs were just the beginning. There were a lot of sex toy booths, such as WeVibe, which, among other things, makes high-end vibrators that are remote controlled. Some of those can be controlled by an app, which is an especially cool option for long-distance couples. There was also Sybian, which makes a saddle-like masturbatory device. They had a lot of really cool attachments available. Most of them were phallus-like dildos, but there was a lot of variety, and one of them even looked like an enlarged vulva. So it wasn't just penises, which I thought was pretty cool. And there were many other brands represented as well. One of the main sponsors of the event was Pleasure Chest, which is an LA-based sex shop. At their booth, they had a collection of these cute buttons with really funny phrases. I can't decide if my favorite was orgasm donor or pussy, it's what's for dinner. One aim of the expo seemed to be just getting people to talk about sex and sexuality in public in a comfortable atmosphere. I was initially a little confused by the marketing of this event because there are a lot of mentions of it being upscale and classy. I didn't really understand what they were going for there or why that was necessary, but after being there for a while, it finally clicked for me. I'm pretty used to attending events about sex. It's normal for me to attend things like AdultCon, which is a porn convention in LA, or Folsom Street Fair, which is an open event in the middle of San Francisco all about kink and different kink and leather practices. At that event, there are literally demonstrations in the street and people all over the place dressed in lingerie and different fetish gear. This is all stuff that's pretty familiar to me, but I realized I'm not everyone. Sex really has a PR problem. When it comes to these events, people might worry that an event centered around sex might be sketchy or seedy, or they won't feel safe or comfortable there. Some people might worry that any event about sex is going to be an orgy, and there will be people masturbating in the streets, and there will be mass chaos. There are events like that, like sex parties, where people are having sex or masturbating there, and that can be an intense or even intimidating experience. But that's definitely not true of every event. Say it with me. Just because we're talking about sex does not mean it's an orgy. But even people who aren't worried about that might be pretty unfamiliar or uncomfortable with talking about sex in public. Even people that communicate about sex pretty openly with their partners or with their friends might not be used to talking about it with strangers at a public event. So I think that might be why this event took such an intentional approach to characterizing it as classy and upscale, to make it more approachable and friendly. And part of that is even in the title, Sexual Health Expo, as opposed to Sexuality Expo or something of the like. I think the focus on health makes it sound more respectable and clean-cut. I'm the kind of person who would attend AdultCon or Folsom Street Fair, and I'm proud of that. I'm not ashamed of that in any way, and I'm generally pretty open about it too. But even with that being the case, when I was telling people what I was in town for, I still found it easier to tell people I was attending a sexual health expo than it would have been if I were attending any of those other events. So, as I said, the focus of the event was sexual health, which means that there was a lot of talk about healthy sex and healthy relationships. As a representative of Everyday Consent, I was pretty happy about that, because that meant that pretty much every talk discussed or even focused on communication and consent in some way, and how both of those lead to healthy sex and healthy relationships. And that was super awesome to me, because it was a reiteration of the fact of something that I've really come to believe is true. That not only does communication help with physical health by helping you avoid STIs or physical pain, by discussing things with your partner and making sure you take any necessary precautions, but communication also helps a lot with emotional health, because a big part of healthy relationships is negotiation. And that involves communicating about your needs and your desires and the needs and desires of your partner and all of the different emotional and social things that come up and are a part of sexuality, which is a lot more than just dildos and butt stuff, though that's pretty fun too. Sexuality involves a lot of different aspects of our lives. Things like emotions and self-respect and self-esteem and stress and other things that are going on in your life. All of these things come up and are involved in sexuality and relationships. And it was great to see all of these different talks touching on that theme in some way. Doesn't matter if you're talking about anal sex, polyamory, online dating, or trying to have multiple orgasms. Turns out communication is pretty key in everything. So that was my experience at Sexual Health Expo. If you like this style of video and want to see more, hit that like button and let us know down in the comments. And if you just want to see more from me, don't forget to subscribe. Happy consenting, folks, and I'll see you next week. As a representative of everyday consent, polyamory, butt stuff, I just want to say butt stuff, not anal sex. Butt stuff. Sexuality. It's like a sexual koala. That's how that like vowel feels like. Koala. Sexuality.